folks. Welcome to another episode of the Launch Sequence Podcast, little space podcast where we talk about space things. We've got a big update coming out actually last week now, if you're listening to this. And we covered it on Citizen Central, but I wanted to dive a little bit more into the particulars today with my good friend here, the AstroHistorian / the Astropub / Paul. Hello, man. How you doing?
I have many names.
Man of many. Lorstradamus.
Yes. I'm doing good. It's Friday, so for me, so I have the weekend, which is nice.
Yeah, he was out there teaching edumacations to folks, and we dragged him out and got him into a podcast to talk edumacation of space things.
Yes.
They dropped a big old info dump of Alpha 323, Star Citizen, and for some people it's what it was kind of expected, but for I think most people it's like, whoa, wait, hold on, there's a lot of stuff. They're coming out swinging. January was very quiet. February starts, and here we are. How are you feeling about this?
I'm feeling okay. So here's the thing. Like, generally speaking, I am far more reserved with my opinions, especially as of I have my outlandish opinions, but I'm far more careful about what I think and what I talk about when I talk about Star Citizen these days, mostly because of how much CIG has burned everybody and their own. They've hyped themselves up, and then eventually, when they've hyped themselves up, they're like, yes, let's do this, and then collapsing, all hope.
Yeah.
And to be fair, CIG has been a lot more confident in their statements. They usually are much more reserved. They've been more confident in their statements. They went out CitizenCon and said everything you see here is going to be with you soon, and some of these things are going to be in the next patch. And of course, not everything was in the next patch, but that was okay. And then Jared gets on the last ISC of the year and says all of these things are going to be in the first 6 months, and Pyro's coming your way in summer. And I personally had a panic attack when that happened. I was like, don't say those things, because now everyone's gonna hear that.
Yeah. And
so when CIG comes forward and says, hey, basically everything you've seen at CitizenCon is coming in 3.23, even my own Discord and people are just like, doubt. So I don't doubt that people are just don't believe it. And I'm personally kind of like, it's a big list. It's a huge list. So I'm feeling kind of like, is this true? Could this be possible? Is CIG finally like turning the corner? And but there is a caveat, and that caveat is that a lot of the stuff we see is actually one system. A lot of the stuff they're dropping is just like a handful of major systems that they've already finished.
And
so
there's
that's why I'm kind of a little in between.
There's also the caveats that like the things we're seeing don't exactly match the things from CitizenCon just yet. Like some of the stuff is sort of, it's still going to be piecemeal in classic
Tier 1.
iterative
Tier
fashion.
0.
Yeah. So there's always that. Always take that. And then obviously this is all stuff that's not committed on the roadmap. It's not even listed on the roadmap, so we don't know what their sort of confidence level is in each specific feature.
Listen, I tried to get Jake to tell me that all of these things are going to be on the roadmap. And Jake was just like, I don't know. Don't ask me. I am definitely not gonna commit myself to anything on this level right now. So like, at the very least, as of this recording, not even the person who makes the judgment call of committed or not is like willing to even commit any of this. So
yeah,
that's a sign right there.
It's a good good call on their part, because like, who really knows what's going to be happening in a month? But the stuff that has been talked about, and we're going to start getting to it, is monumental in some ways. Have you? Let me take a step back. Going through January, a lot of people were feeling like CitizenCon and Q4 of last year were all hype, and then it kind of died down, and there wasn't really much to be excited for this year. Like, it already felt like CIG had pulled back. How were you feeling in January?
I have been around this block many times. And the one thing I can tell you is that January is always a dead month. And there's a couple of reasons for it. The basic reason is, as everyone knows, it's planning month. It's where CIG gets together and they take all their ducks lined up in a row and figure out what they're doing for the next year, what they're planning on. And the second of all that a lot of people don't realize is, and this is going to be a mind-blowing revelation for some of you, CIG is staffed by human beings who, in fact, need breaks and time off with family members.
No.
Yeah. So as a result, many CIG developers decide to take January off because they already get 2 weeks off from their from that kind of break, and some of them work those 2 weeks, and then they'll have extra. I think they get extra weeks if they work those weeks. So, and they
And
also have a very generous amount of time off. So they just take that saved up time off that they've saved up because they work the rest of the year, and then they burn it all in like 1 month. And so as a result, development is a little slow and communication's a little slow.
and
Yeah.
bless them,
Yeah.
because I don't care what kind of bias you have for or against Star Citizen or the man who created it or all that stuff, but like the people who work there are working on a game that hasn't actually given them bragging rights yet in the
Yeah.
industry, and they have been just like busting their butts to make it work. And like, yeah, I think they deserve some breaks.
Mhm.
It's not that
Yeah.
not that complicated. But yeah, January is always slow. We hit February and we get these sort of roadmap updates. The roadmap update hasn't hit yet, but they're
No.
pleasing us early with Star Citizen Live and Inside Star Citizen. Let's talk a little bit about what's coming out first. Overall, I kind of want to focus today on like Star Citizen becoming a game, going from that sort of tech demo feel to game feel. So I want to look at each of the different parts of updates we're going to see in 323 and potentially this year, and how they compare to maybe some other front runners across the industry. So why don't we start with like the updates we saw in Inside Star Citizen? Did you get to watch Inside Star Citizen?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes, it did.
EVA and personal interaction stuff. What do you think of that so far?
It's good. I mean, the EVA stuff is this is one of the kind of weird parts, is that there's actually multiple games that have been released in the last decade or so, or the last 10 years or so, that have utilized EVA mechanics. You have Kerbal Space Program is pretty famous for it, but there's a game that I can't remember that it's an FPS game that's like takes place entirely in zero G. That's its whole kind of shtick, is that it's a zero G FPS game. And you had zero G elements of Infinite Warfare, and there's a lot of like games out there that have zero G. And I think CIG is taking a unique approach to that zero G concept that I haven't seen other games take, with the whole changing of the perspective and the natural movement around. And it looks a lot more natural. It looks a lot more. It looks more akin to what you see NASA astronauts when they actually, and Russian cosmonauts and other space people, how they move around their vehicles in space. A lot more Superman style. So it looks good. It looks realistic. It looks easy and kind of very uh, intuitive. And the interaction system is great. Even though, as someone, I think Darionator pointed out, it's like we just went back to use. We did all of these systems and we just went back to use.
Is it? Are we going back to? Is it basically just a use button?
It's just basically the use button. It's just you press a button and you use it. And now you have a little bit more in depth in terms of what you want to.
Yeah. God, I love the set default key binding for that. That's such a godsend. The EVA stuff, though, do you think that it actually solves the problems that we have in terms of transitions and stuff?
Yeah, I think it does. Does it look? Is it the prettiest thing in the universe? No, but does it do the job? Yeah. And will they improve it over time? Maybe. But I mean, I don't. How many people are staring at their characters, being like, "Oh yes, I want to descend like a graceful butterfly when I land," or how many? Or is it more like, get down on the ground, run, get to your ship, get to your cockpit, do those things. You're not looking at the detailed animations of transitioning from one to another. You're just wanting to make it look like it's not bad, and it's not bad. So,
and hoping that your body doesn't rotate around your wrist as you do it.
Or,
That's awful.
or or you face plant as you come in and just like skid across half of the ship and then before you actually get up.
When do you think we'll see the rest of the EVA stuff? Like the actual, they have the actual zero G like movements with the hands.
This is revenge, isn't it? This is a revenge question.
Oh, I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of these today, so and I'm not going to even leave them veiled. It's a bunch of win questions.
It's a win questions.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to err on the side of caution and say that I think this is what we're going to get until the later in the I don't think we're going to get any more additions to the EVA system in the next 6 months. We might get traversal, but traversal and the usage of like the EVA fuel, that being kind of an expendable, those both require they're kind of they're interlocked. Traversal is done because they have EVA fuel, which is lessened now. So or it's like an actual like utility. So because it's a utility, it's because it's a what's the term for it? I'm trying to say because it's a resource.
Yeah,
because
commodity.
it's a resource as it's commodity. It's usable in like then you have the other stuff that helps it so that it doesn't sting as much because you have to use it.
Because
and
do you think it's going to be?
I was just going to say because
Sorry,
the resource system isn't in yet. Like, and we don't know when the resource system's coming in, and even CIG seems to be hesitant about it. So because of that, we're not going to see it until after the RIC system comes in, and if the RIC system isn't in,
Do you think that? I'm guessing EVA fuel must just be compressed oxygen. Is that?
It could be. Most, I think, EVA thrusters or maneuvering thrusters on modern spacecraft is nitrogen. So, but it's gas. It's a gas.
Yeah, it is a gas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that would be involved in the economy in some way?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Everything's linked in, right?
Yeah.
So
do I think it's going to be right away? Probably not. I think it's more the resource system.
Right.
It's really what's holding it.
Yeah, EVA is going to be interesting, especially when they start limiting the fuel. We were talking about earlier how they will tell players like, "Hey, your suit doesn't have EVA fuel. Like, you don't go outside." Yeah. Stuff like that. It's going to be interesting to see how much stuff they have to pack into the UI.
I'm looking forward to people just playing the game like normal and then trying to EVA and then running out of EVA fuel in like 5 seconds and being like, "Well, I'm stuck now.
Floating off.
I don't know what I'm going to do."
Yeah, this game's going to end up with a lot of that.
Especially people who've been played in the past and are very used to it and not used to the changes. So
yeah, like how many characters we're going to lose permadeath because people just go through their first 6 lives in day one.
I'll just backspace and go back to where I wait. Wait, what do you mean I lost everything? I only backspaced 4 times.
The interaction system. Where would you put that in terms of like on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being the highest level of quality of life we can possibly ever want, and 1 being like forced reactions.
Yeah. 7, solid 7. It's good. I think they could do better, but I don't know how. I'm sure there's some people who are smarter than I am and have better experience with UI who could figure out some method that would work better. But based off of what they have and what they need, it works and it looks good. And can't help but notice that it looks like it's very much being designed around
plebs.
Controller.
Description: Xbox controller.
Yeah, a controller. It looks like these sorts of the interaction system is very controller friendly.
Yeah,
and I do wonder why. Now, that's the conspiracy theorist in me. The reality,
because they dragged it out of Squadron.
Yeah, but it's also because like Star Citizen's a control agnostic, so like you're just going to have a lot of different. They have to support a lot of different things. So if someone has a unique system that they use for whatever reason, that system works great for that sort of, because you can just map an F button on whatever you want. So
I think that actually is a great segue into just general UI updates. Because this is it helps with the controller agnostic, but like there is a pretty wide ranging uplift of quality across all of the UIs. MFDs, Starmap, they didn't say MFDs for 323, but this year MFDs, Starmap on 323, visor and HUD. Does it, let's like compare to, man, I'll avoid the obvious one. Let's compare to Cyberpunk.
Okay.
I think Cyberpunk's like a pretty, I'm not going to say it has a good UI. I've played it plenty. You've played Baldur's Gate, I think, so like you might be able to
Yeah.
speak towards a game like that. But let's compare it to a game like that in terms of UI for a first person. I guess Baldur's Gate's not first person, but
Yeah.
in terms
Yeah,
of
I mean,
interaction, what would you say?
uh, can we say the awful one? Not looking at Cyberpunk, but actually looking at Starfield.
Hey man, I said
Not the
I
obvious
was
one.
avoiding the
Well,
compare. Yeah.
well, Starfield is a terrible UI. It's awful UI. It's bad UI design. It's lazy UI design. It's old UI design. It's like it was an afterthought compared to what it should have been.
What
And Cyberpunk,
where are you coming from when you say that? Like, what's the big standout kind of stuff?
usability, being able to like find what you need when you need it, instead of having to like scroll through this giant like massive list of stuff that you have to pull out, and
Yeah.
like being able to sort stuff. Like Star Citizen already has sorting and other things added to the UI, and that's only for the inventory and such. So it's fantastic. It's great. And the one problem that Star Citizen has always had is clutter. Your UI gets cluttered so fast. Just like you can't see stuff half the time. And they've really worked to kind of improve that with like the new star map is very tries to unclutter some of those names so you can actually see the names, and the way that the perspective is locked. Um, I would say it's probably better than Cyberpunk. At least the new ones that we've seen is better than Cyberpunk. I wouldn't say it's like 1,000 times better, but I would say it's better. Again, a solid 7, I guess. You know,
Yeah. I think, man, Starfield, you know what really bugged me with that was when I think there were 100 star systems, and it was some point when I realized I had to like scroll around to find one instead of just searching for it, which is a problem I have with Star Citizen's map too. But Star
Mhm.
Citizen only has 4 planets, so it's not that bad. The
Mhm.
fact that they're bringing search into the star map, though, oh my gosh, it's such a simple thing.
Mwah.
Yeah.
Mwah. It's so good.
You play Elite Dangerous?
Yes, I have played it in the past.
One of my favorite things about Elite Dangerous was like I had this complex cockpit with all these different screens around, but I could still map a button to make my view zoom into a screen, and it just made it feel so much less intimidating. That I didn't have to like manually zoom in on a screen and do all that kind of stuff. That's
Mhm.
been one of my bigger issues with the UI in Star Citizen. It's kind of escaping me right now. I know there's a couple of things they're doing to help improve that, but do you see that being improved with these UI updates at all in terms of,
Yes.
yeah?
Yes. I because one of the problems is you want to have good cameras, or good like camera tracking that lets you see enough but not see too much. And I would say that Star Citizen and CIG is on the better side of the industry when it comes to this. Again, I don't know enough to say if it would be perfect or not, but I know enough to be dangerous, but not enough to be an expert. So, um, I know what I like, and I've done some discussion because a lot of it is design discussion, and design discussion is universal, be it theater, movies, television, video games. It's just like where the eye is drawn and all those sorts of like color theory and stuff like that. I have enough information to like know that
Yeah.
they're good, and I've heard enough. I'm in enough of the discussion that I know that like God of War Ragnarok got really creamed for its camera control problems, because it was a little bit too tight in terms of its camera tight in. So
Like
you really
taking
see.
control of your camera away and stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So yeah. I think they're on the right path. And I think the right amount of feedback, they'll be able to fix it because of the new systems they have. So
Okay. Yeah, I think overall their UI is man, it's a huge step up. The looting screen is Um, whenever I go into Star Citizen, I'm like playing some of these mercenary missions, especially the ones that come with waves of enemies, where you're like, what is it? Consignment missions, data heist missions, and you're getting like waves of enemy coming at you. And there's so much potential to go and collect weapons and stuff and loot and put it in a box and make a ton of money from there. But man, looting in this game is such a pain, dude. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. And this new screen being able to just consolidate stuff and quickly flip it back and forth. Um, it's hard to express just how much of a difference I think that'll make.
It's a quality of life improvement. And as much as I'll say that Star Citizen is about to improve, the quality of life is about to improve dramatically over the next couple of months. I also say that there's going to be some elements where that it will go down in quality. So it's
Yeah.
going to be more kind of like a balance. Like if you're an average FPS player, you're going to be you're eating good. This is good soup for Star Citizen. And if you're a pilot, this is going to be a little bit better. But if you're like an industry player, if you like moving boxes, it's going to be some hard time for you in the next couple of months. It's going to slow down. So
Let's talk about the year overall. Oh, and let me interject in between all these features we're going over. 2023 2023 was expected to be a big year, blah blah blah. We were kind of hoping
mhm.
for server meshing. We mostly knew it wasn't going to happen, but 2023 was kind of a year of like not stagnation because of PES, but it definitely was a slowdown. And
Mhm.
2024, I think people were going into it expecting some big stuff, but not knowing just how it was going to lay out. All of these features suddenly being talked about for 323, how does that change your outlook of the year overall? Because we got 3 more updates after this now.
It doesn't. It doesn't. I will say because what I was expecting was no more than what we saw at CitizenCon, and probably not even everything that was at CitizenCon, and then Pyro. That's pretty much what I'm expecting. And I think it's really important to kind of like really emphasize that Pyro is different. And I say Pyro is different is that because so many people are saying they call it Red Stanton. It's a joke, that it's
That just
just going to be
sounds
whatever we have in
sounds like a good album name.
Red Stanton.
Yeah.
That it's just going to be what we have in Stanton, but a new system. It's not going to be any different. And based off of my own recently I kind of went through because they recently released a lore bit on the discoverer of the Stanton system, Toshi Aaron, which is what the Aaron Halo is named after. And consequently,
Huh.
she named the system after her dead brother, who was named Stanton Aaron. So that's why it's called Stanton. Um, and I was looking through that and I realized, man, we know a lot more about Pyro than we know about Stanton. And Stanton's newer system was only discovered about 100 years ago in Star Citizen lore, and Pyro's much older. But Pyro has also been mostly just outlaws for the good source, like for the good 400 years since right after it was discovered, it was pretty much turned into outlaws. But we still know a lot more about the system's evolution, its change, who is in charge. There's a lot more interesting characters that have been involved in Pyro than we've ever heard about in Stanton. And I think the answer to that is CIG is really trying to flesh out Pyro. So when they drop Pyro, it's going to be everything. It's going to be done. They'll be finished with it. They're not gonna have to add 15 new outposts and gang locations. No, like tons of new um caves. Like CIG will have considered it done or gold standard or whatever. And I think that's a lot of work for how CIG is currently. And because that's a lot of work, I think if, and this is a gigantic if, there is so much writing on that if word, on this if, um, CIG manages to get Pyro released for their third quarter, their summer patch. I don't think we're going to see much for the rest of the year. So we're getting a lot for 3.23, and I think we'll get the leftovers from CitizenCon and 2.3.24. But if they do 4.0 in quarter three, then that's it. Which that's a lot, but a lot of that stuff will already have been dripped in over the course of this year. So it'll mostly just be the back end and other things. So yeah, I like it. It's for me, it's just like that's it. And I think for a lot of people, it's like that's a lot. It's like, yeah, but it won't feel like that when it comes to December, and you're like, wow, there's just nothing really added in 4.1. Yeah.
Yeah,
they,
yeah.
they're dead. They're tired. They're eepy. They're gonna go take an eepy. They're gonna go take a nap. All right. They're just feeling eepy at that point.
I feel like 4.1 would be no. See, I've gotten some things have been changed around a little bit in my expectations because I was sitting here thinking, man, if we're looking at stuff from CitizenCon, um, and seriously considering the rest of the year, I was not thinking that we would get substantial economy updates just because they didn't talk about it at CitizenCon really. But it does seem like they're starting to dive harder in that than I expected. Like they're talking about specific pricing for specific objects in a way that sounds like they want us to actually start understanding how much we're supposed to make or expect to make in a day, which seems like a really, really substantial period or milestone for an MMO.
I mean, they're laying the groundwork. They're laying the foundation for what it is, what's going on.
It
So
feels very
yeah,
gamey.
yeah. Well, they're gonna be doing some like the dynamic stuff is gonna happen at some point.
Oh,
Which will kind of
I don't mean gamey in a bad way. Like gamey in that it's just gonna be like a
like
video
it feels
game.
like it feels like a video game,
Yeah.
and I think, but it will be gamey because it'll be kind of very flat. You
Mhm.
get this for this. It'll be very like everywhere you go, it's going to be the same, or it might be slightly different, but it'll be pre-programmed that way. And the dynamic stuff will come around, but they need to have this foundation. And you and I both have known that economy team has been around for like 6 months now,
Yeah.
and they've been doing a lot of background work this entire time. So it's not surprising that they step forward in January and be like, here's all of the research we've done, and this is all the things we're going to do from now on. We're changing everything up, and we're going to make it so that shirts don't cost 4 times the cost of a magazine. A white T-shirt doesn't cost the same as a magazine of like futuristic space laser ammo.
My favorite thing is just that, like, I get to know what a ship is supposed to cost. I can't. How are you supposed to tell a player? Yeah, you can jump into the game and you'll be able to make, you'll be able to earn this ship in your first week when we don't know if that ship price is going to change the next quarter. It's nice to have that extra confidence of like, okay, this game's it's getting to the point where it's not finalizing stuff, but it's entering a more permanent phase.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So if 4.0 were to come in the summer in quarter 3, or you think that's actually still a thing that we could see 4.0 in server meshing this year?
I think it's a possibility.
Okay, let me write that down.
That's
Paul
why I said
confirms
4.0. Yeah. Hold me to it. I am skeptical of it happening, but I'm not going to sit here and say that it's impossible for it to happen. If that makes sense.
That's fair. Yeah, I think that we might see Pyro get its own server, but I don't think it's going to go much further than that, at least this year. I just hope that, like, in terms of gameplay and stability, people don't have to worry about crashing anymore.
Yeah, I agree. If they could make it so that it's a lot better in terms of performance, so you're not getting 30Ks and stuff like that, then yeah, I think that fundamentally is going to change how things work. I think a lot of the stuff we're going to get in the first half of the year is going to it's CIG flipping a table. Like a lot of it is quality of life updates, but things like what is it? The cargo elevators fundamentally going to change how the game plays. And then we have things like the thing that they haven't talked about that that CIG all but like shouted from the rooftops in the last monthly report from the Squadron 42 monthly report was Vulcan. Vulcan's done. It's done. Version 1 of Vulcan is completely finished. They're pushing it out next patch. And that was the absolute cojones of saying that in the Squadron 42 release. I was like,
do you remember what the exact words were? Because I didn't read that one.
I will pull it up. It was ballsy when I heard. I'm like, wow, That's confidence right
So,
there.
that can really help with optimization.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
With your FPS, with the general gameplay you're getting, that in addition to getting actually your animations and stuff all improved, could make the game feel a lot more smooth to play.
Yeah. I'm pulling up the let me just FVUL. Okay. So it says Vulkan is reaching its final stage of development with the team wrapping up the last of their rendering tech. Ongoing work is targeting reducing stutter by working shader, PSO compilation cache, and general performance before the initial release.
So do
So yeah,
you think it's 323 bound?
I mean, initial release, and this was in November, December. This
Okay, yeah, so a couple months ago.
a couple months ago.
And what
So
do you
this is a couple
think
months ago, and they're wrapping
realistic
things up. So,
realistically, what do you think this means for like just average players in the game?
performance, like potato performance or potato PC performance is going to dramatically increase. Better frames for client side, like you're more everything's gonna be moved over to your graphics card. So those who have better graphics cards are gonna really see the difference. Like you kind of saw the difference with the Gen 12 renderer.
Yeah.
Now it's going to actually start to. And I think CIG has to kind of get some of this stuff in because they've got all these new fancy graphical upgrades they want to add in. So Vulkan has to be the basis of those things. So.
Yeah. That's also kind of indicative of how this year's going. That we're seeing they're expanding graphical settings, they're bringing in their own versions of global illumination, upscaling, and all these things that you kind of just expect for a game release. You know, like not even a game release. Some games are adding these in updates after they've released their game in their like 1.0.5 updates or something, and we're now seeing that come into this game that's always been in a sort of a pre-alpha state.
Yeah. I will say I agree. I think it's becoming more of a game that I would feel okay with recommending people. Up to this point, I've been like, it's on the edge. But once the things like Vulkan and like the star maps improving, I can I feel like if someone goes, "Is this game worth it?" I'll be like, "Yeah, it's got the gameplay you want. It's got
Yeah.
the technology one. Yeah, it's fine." Especially if Pyro's out, it's like, yeah, it's fine.
It's like
it's better than a lot of other games out there right now. Kind of
Yeah,
thing, so.
people always say that. Like I've gotten more enjoyment out of this than most games, and I would say that I believe that. But there's too much of a barrier for most people to get that enjoyment, and when you don't have to deal with those problems like the star map, the first person interactions, understanding how the heck to open your door, those you can start to tell more people who are less willing to deal with the bugs and the problems. Yeah, you could try this. Even if there's something that you don't like, you'll still recognize the decent gameplay and the structure that's there. And that's really good for the game.
Yeah.
What do you think? We were already talking about UI with Starfield. What do you think of the new star map in Star Citizen compared to that? Or even, I guess, take the star map in Elite Dangerous too.
I like it better than Elite Dangerous, and that's probably a controversial take because I know a lot of people like it, but I don't like the 2D plane approach that they do with the star map and Elite. It works, but it's like a it works, but it doesn't wow me kind of thing. And the star map, the new star map in Star Citizen feels very utilitarian, but still with a little bit of flair. Like there's no other star map like Star Citizen star map, and that used to be a joke, a bad joke. But I think this is starting to improve upon it. There's definitely room for improvement, like attaching the Galactopedia to it so that you can start like what's this planet? Oh, look, what are these systems? What is this? That kind of kind of what you already have with the Arc star map we have in computer, but
and more colors, please.
Mhm.
I can't. I can't. I was never really a big stickler for the monotone blue in this game, but like it's starting to be a bit much for me.
They need what they need is customization. We need to be able to customize the colors of our UI, and that's an accessibility issue that CIG's. I think after this is done, has no more excuses. It's like, oh well, our old systems. What old systems? This is all brand new. You ripped everything out and put it in. Now give us this accessibility, please.
Yep. Let's see. Let's talk about the shooter aspect, because there's a lot of stuff coming in that's going to change up how FPS combat works in this game. Where would you like to start? How about actually give
This
us a game to compare to first? We've got plenty
Arma,
coming from the community. You pick Arma. Why is that?
Arma, Arma is a good example because a lot of people will almost fetishize Arma as a military simulator, but in practice, my experience, it's not really a simulator. It's pretty close to what a sim is, but it's still a game. And I think that's the kind of thing that Star Citizen is searching to kind of emulate without the jank. Because the problem about Arma is that Arma is jank. There is a lot of weird outlining and animation issues, and its UI is kind of bad, and its interaction system is notoriously hard to figure out. But a lot of people like it for its charm because it's once you've understood the system, it becomes very intuitive to use it over and over again and kind of figure
Mhm.
out what things will do it, and it becomes fast in terms of, but it's not very user friendly for a new person. And as a longtime Arma vet now, I can see where CIG is going with it. Um, Things like CIG is going to go a little beyond that with things like maintenance and wear and tear, which means your guns are going to I was going to say ship, but your ships are too, but your guns are going to jam and break, and you'll have to clean them and maintain them, and so there's a lot more kind of routine maintenance and other things like that, and their approach to the scopes. Yeah, that's what I would say. I have seen, apparently there's a big discussion amongst the FPS people, the fans of FPS who play Star Citizen, that there's a big discussion over if Star Citizen is too arcadey
Mhm.
with FPS,
Yeah.
especially with the new dynamic crosshair. So
The dynamic cross the dynamic crosshair comes off more arcade. Oh, just because it's a
yeah,
crosshair in general.
because you can now just, you don't have to aim down sights. You can just pull the trigger and it'll go where the crosshair is what they're afraid of.
Hmm.
So like a lot of people are like, it's Halo. I'm like, I don't, I played a lot of Halo in my days. Doesn't feel like Halo.
No, it doesn't feel like I love Halo. Doesn't quite feel like Halo, but honestly, if we had the gun feels that Halo did, that'd be high praise. um, yeah, it's also like is in chat with the supporters right now. Tarkov is there's a lot of crossover just between the communities of
Oh
Tarkov
yeah.
and Star Citizen. One of the features that I know people really like about that is like the ability to very specifically manage your ammo. And they're kind of
Yeah.
adding that into Star Citizen with like ammo pooling. How do you feel about that solution? Should they have gone further with it, or is that like a solid, yeah, we'll let you use your ammo and like manage it, but very little amounts?
I'd like it more. I'd like to have us more be able to, like, I'd like to be a little bit more intuitive and a little bit more, I don't know, intuitive. This is going to sound weird, but I don't like this. I don't like ammo pooling as a result of just like making it easier. I'd still like ammo combining, like take an ammo clip, ammo magazine, and this has like 16 and this has, 10, and you just drag it over and you have an option of combine and it just transfers the things, but you still have to kind of
Yeah.
do that physical thing rather than just doing it for you. Um, and then you have something left over and then you can go refill it. And I know the CIG doesn't want to go like single bullet, single bullet, single
Right.
bullet, single bullet. They don't want that because CNC would have to do the full animations and that whole thing. And there are plenty of games that do that. I think Tarkov actually does that,
Yeah.
but I don't. That's a matter of, it's not, is the juice worth the squeeze? And the answer is no. I don't think that it's really worth the amount of effort and time that they'd have to put into doing that. But there are ways they could have they kind of gone around that, which keeps that similar kind of feel. So
Okay. How about the sliding? That's another place people feel like it's kind of moving more arcadey.
sliding is for, you can't shoot while sliding. It's just defensive. So
Hmm.
it's like I think you can't shoot while sliding. Um you're just getting into cover. It's just quick movement into cover is what it's designed for. So
Okay.
it's not tribes for for the older folks like myself. We're not looking at skiing and like
Or
tribes, and it's
Titanfall.
not going, it's not gonna be a Titanfall wall walking. It's just getting into cover. It'll be a small thing and stuff. So
Okay. Let's see. What else is there FPS related? We've got I like the backpack reloading. I don't know. Do you know any other games that do stuff like that? That seems like something that you might get from like Metro Exodus maybe,
Maybe.
or a game like or
Yeah.
Stalker with the survival elements to it. But I thought it was a pretty good idea for like I never remember I have ammo in my backpack. I don't know about you, but I'll be out shooting a gun and I'll be like, oh my god, I'm out of ammo. What do? I drop the gun and there's 15 clips of ammo in my backpack and I just never remember. I think that's a great little solution for idiots like myself.
It's a great solution, and the penalty you take from it makes sense because it reminds you, oh, I do have ammo in my backpack.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right, now it's taking so much longer for me to reload my gun. I should probably stop and pull out the ammo in my backpack and clip it onto my arm or somewhere.
Yeah.
So
It's like a subtle reminder. It's the
hey, idiot.
it's that person at work. The as per my previous email.
As per my previous email, yeah.
Oh, I hate that. Okay, let's talk about this is kind of a big one and an obvious one. It's not a big surprise that it's coming in 323. People were hoping for it, but it's nice to hear that they are planning it. Freight elevators. These have been coming for a long time. They've been anticipated, and they're kind of not the end of the cargo refactor, but a big final piece of the cargo refactor. There are other games that have cargo hauling in them, especially space games, but are there any where you would say like the experience is similar to this with the physical loading and stuff?
Not outside of games like Space Engineers. There's like anything that's the kind of style and scope of Star Citizen. No, it doesn't exist. And I think to some people it's a bad thing.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I'd imagine a lot of Elite Dangerous fans are very, very not happy with the idea if they're coming from Elite to Star Citizen of having to manually load and unload that sort of thing. It's that whole thing is a lot more of a survival game mechanic than it is than a sim mechanic, like even a space sim mechanic. Like because it's not just moving crates, but anyone who's played a survival game knows that a lot of what you do when you're not out trying to survive or trying to achieve a goal is inventory management. Just taking the stuff you have and figuring out which boxes it needs to go into and all kind of stuff. And CIG just straight up said that's what's going to happen with cargo elevators. Now you're going to have to take time and do inventory management to be able to find whatever you actually have in your equipment. So
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the survival stuff because then it's also like you're actively doing manual labor to load your ship and you will have to refuel your body to do that. And that really does actually annoy a lot of people, which to some extent I understand. You know, maybe you didn't sign up for a survival game, but
yeah,
this game has been based around that kind of idea for a long time.
Yeah. I think at this point, anyone who's coming in saying that this isn't I didn't want a survival game, it's like this is a Chris Roberts game. It's a sim. So the closest thing to the sim is survival. So
Yeah. Do you think that the freight elevators are bringing in the cargo missions that we've been hearing about for a while?
yes, 100%.
So
Elliot doesn't he doesn't stop talking about that. He when that first came out, he was doing victory laps on everyone's stream
which one? When what came
the
out?
cargo elevators. Because when it was mentioned, the cargo missions were mentioned in a monthly report.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
they were added into the progress tracker, and he was just like, "Yeah, everyone's been complaining about it to me, but it's done. We're working on it. Yeah, praise me." It's like, okay, cool. Now it's put up or shut up, dude.
Can we have them though? Yeah,
Can we have them now?
they're a big deal. Cargo hauling has been constant. Put your own money up and risk losing it, or don't do cargo hauling. And now, finally, it sounds like we're going to get courier missions on a bigger scale. Do you think that means that we'll also see the stuff we saw at CitizenCon, like the new factions, the reputation, all that stuff? Really?
1,000%. I don't think we're going to see it with 3.23.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what I meant, man. Don't hype me up, dude. Come on.
No. I think we'll see it in 3.24. It's the you're taking it off the list.
Not as excited anymore. No, but 3.24 would be good too.
Yeah, Yeah, I
Just
think I think it's within the next 6 months. I could even see it in like a 3.23, 3.23 dot one sort of patch, because it's one of those things that when it's done, it's done. The
mhm.
reputation stuff, because they already have the reputation system in. It's just a matter of expanding it. So,
How do
um,
you what do you think of like the experience now that we have all the physical loading and stuff using tractor beams and everything? Does it feel like it might end up being too cumbersome? How's the experience to you?
I've gotten used to it. I've learned how to use it and how to move things around. It really helped that those bounty missions that spawned like ships with a bunch of illegal goods, and so you stop and actually unload them. I learned how to use those or relearned how to use them because I learned them because of Xenothreat of how to move boxes pretty quickly. So now I know how to like move things around and use the tractor beams. I think it's just cumbersome enough that somebody who is starting to experience Star Citizen will go, I hate this. But not enough that it's like frustrating. It's just like, I'm so slow. But then, somebody who's been doing it for like a couple of months is just like boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, boop, 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 just like it's like they're like offhandedly playing Tetris in the background kind of thing is how good they get at it. Because once you figure out the dimensions and what fits in what cargo, you can pretty easily move things around. You can actually fit more than you should in some ships with the right stacking. So
Yep. And yeah, it's like I think it's not too difficult to get pretty good at it, or at least
mhm,
passable at it, to where you can be making decent money working in a group. It's
yeah,
also complex enough that when you first pick it up, you're like, okay, I've got something to learn here, which I think is a
yeah.
solid balance.
I think it's a good movement towards what CIG's been. With this might be the another bold claim from Paul on the launch sequence podcast, but this might be the year of the multi crew for CIG. So anything that can move it so that players are working together and trying to get more players together and doing to achieve one goal is what CIG wants. And
Yeah.
having something that is not impossible to do, but you can get better at as you practice it is the kind of gameplay loop that CIG wants. Someone who is a goes on to ships and they're just like, I'm going to do the cargo. Maybe they're the quartermaster. Like they also do the inventory and do everything else like that. So like they focus on that stuff so that the other people can do their jobs. So
Yeah, I'm very grateful for that kind of design. Let's talk about the looter shooter.
right.
We've got some examples coming from the community. Borderlands obviously is a big one to call out, but there's also MMO style kind of looting, with a halfway point being something like the Division maybe, or
Mhm.
Destiny. But there's also World of Warcraft looting and Final Fantasy and all that kind of stuff. With these new distribution centers we're getting, which I think represent the real push into these ground locations that they want in the game. How do you feel like that scene of Star Citizen is shaping up in comparison?
Poorly. CIG needs a lot more loot and a lot more reason to loot because right now it's very artificial. Like, oh, you want that armor in that color? Oh, you're gonna have to go loot it. It's like, then I won't do it. I just don't care. It's like it's just a cool armor piece that has some color behind it. It doesn't really, and it's such a random roll of the dice that you don't know what you're getting and where you're getting it or anything else like that. At least like with like most looter shooters, there's like a chance to drop a specific type of loot or the specific style of loot because it matches like kind of the region or the area. And CIG is still a long ways from those sorts of drops and those sorts of chances.
Yeah.
And they have to make it worthwhile. And I think CIG is a little bit too hesitant with that. They don't want to give us a Karna that is actually, better than every other Karna, because then people will be like, oh, so it's just a matter of rolling for the right. You just go grind out and get that better Karna. And now you've got the best gun in the game because it's the Karna plus, and everyone else is just gonna not bother buying Karnas because it'll ruin the sort of CIG's sort of economy. So
Well,
without that sort of incentive, they have to make some other incentive for people to kind of go out and grind and loot and shoot. They don't really have that yet.
do you think that's something that they should consider doing?
No,
weapons with different statistics? Okay.
no, no. I think I
S-
think uh, I think the best thing they could do for looter shooter style is uh, valuables. So they have a key. I think they do have something they could use, which is, and I'm saying this because I'm very biased. Uh, Relics and artifacts, rare things you can find that you can then sell for money, but is hard to find. Something
Yeah.
that's got value either in reputation or money that you could find, but not like use. So
They certainly have value to lure people.
yes, we do have a lot of value for
They
it.
yeah, they don't do a great job at giving us the loot, but they did talk a little bit about it at CitizenCon, with like armor. Do you remember that whole thing?
Yeah, yeah.
What
That
was
but that was
your
a lot of that was was like combined with like reputation though, right?
uh y- yes, kind of. They were talking about it sort of in the sense of AI, I think, and like the armors they would wear.
Hmm.
With like rare, common, uncommon,
Yeah,
legendary.
yeah,
How did you understand that affecting the loot system? A lot of people were worried they were starting to say things like, "Oh, these armors will have different attributes because they're legendary as opposed to rare." Um, how do you see that affecting the way that we would be looting stuff? Like, would people have to go to a certain place to get a certain level of armor?
yeah. I think so. I do think that there's going to be some levels of armor, but I also think that CIG, at least I hope, CIG is going to move away from that idea of my +5 armor of contempt versus your +0, peasant armor. Uh, I would prefer it more in the way of like you can get this armor from say the dusters, this rare epic duster armor, and it doesn't give you necessarily any better than any other heavy armor,
Hmm.
but it gives you more weapon slots or additional attachments, utility, adding more utility to an armor rather than it being just straight up better. Because then it is a reason to get it. If I'm getting an armor that say has a built-in EVA pack, like an MMU, so that I can go around in space a little bit better,
Hmm.
but I can only do it by working with the space trucker organization who has the supply on these sorts of things, or working around those places. Then yeah, I'll go there and buy that thing, or go work for those people to get that option, because it gives me a slight advantage while keeping the other advantages I have with that armor. But
That would
you
also
know,
be cool because we just talked about how some armor won't have EVA. It'd be cool to find an armor that everybody loves but doesn't have EVA thrusters, and you find the one that does.
yeah, the ones that
That
is
would,
built in,
yeah, that'd be pretty sick. Let's talk about ship combat. Here's one that actually there are not. I guess there's a pretty decent amount of competitors in this space.
Mhm.
What would you say is the best ship combat game you can find right now?
That's a good question, actually. Um, PvP or PvE? That's the question.
Hmm.
Because like I wouldn't say Elite Dangerous PvP is very engaging, but it's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say its PvE combat is pretty good. Um, Honestly, the Star Wars Squadrons was really fun, and but I think it was a little bit more arcadey than what CIG would be going for.
Yeah.
Um,
DCS would be far too sim, and it's also not in
Part yeah,
space.
yeah, DCS is a little bit too sim. Um, and I don't think War Thunder is a good comparison if you're looking at those sorts of things. So
Yeah,
it's hard.
it's hard to find a good direct comparison, which is again part of why people end up in Star Citizen.
Yeah.
Um, but the changes that they're doing largely revolve around changing the speed and proximity of combat.
Mhm.
A lot of people have feelings about this. It's lowering the skill ceiling.
Mhm.
It's making dogfighting more visual and more World War II like. There's so many opinions. How do you feel about it?
I I don't know, like, because the problem is that I don't have enough real world experience with combat in the kind of way that a lot of people do. I don't have much stakes in combat. So um, I can't tell you one way or the other if it's going to be bad or good. I do think it's just going to be different.
Hmm.
And I've been in Star Citizen long enough in terms of how many times they've changed combat in flight that I know that it's you'll adapt. And the only thing I'm concerned about is everyone I've talked to who's involved in the combat stuff says that you'll hear people complain about things like turning speeds and stuff like that, and they'll be like, that really doesn't matter. It's just a matter of adapting for that. The problem is that a lot of people think that in that space think that what CIG is doing will not accomplish what CIG wants to do. And that's the problem. It's less of a will it be good or bad and more of a does it do what CIG is hoping it will do? And they're afraid no, it won't. It's not actually accomplishing the goal of slowing down combat, of making it more engaging, and of allowing for turning and other such things.
Hmm.
Um, and it's probably one of the reasons why we don't see master modes in the game yet, because they released some early versions of it, and a lot of people said they liked it, but and then they had like a long list of buts, and so Yogi and his team had to look through all that feedback and see what's right and wrong, and and even then, I still a lot of people still are kind of pessimistic on it. So I couldn't tell you, but I do think that a lot of people who said that like without players playing it, CIG would have made a terrible system. I think they're being a little bit overblown with that. They're a little bit too much, what is it? Chicken Little kind of thing. A little bit of Boy Who Cried Wolf, or a little bit like they're a little too paranoid about something that it's like, nah, it would have been okay even if we didn't let us test it. It just probably wouldn't have been exactly what they wanted. So
Definitely helps that they get to, I mean, it makes Star Citizen so much better that we get to play with these things before they release them. That's for sure.
and that CIG actually listens to feedback, because
Yeah.
that's the other huge thing. They could just give us whatever they wanted to and just say deal with it. They don't. So
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I'm, I am of the mindset that the game overall, it should be competitive for sure. But
mhm,
at the end of the day, dogfighting needs to feel good and
mhm.
fun and visceral and engaging. And it should be something like you should come away from it remembering what you did. Um, there was always that battlefield moment. It just kind of came out of nowhere. It wasn't like EA started it or DICE started it. People just understood there was a battlefield moment, and that kind of stuff doesn't happen unless the game purposefully tries to push you closer in to create those encounters. And I think being close to ships combined with the next feature we're going to talk about, precision targeting, is going to allow for Star Citizen to shine a lot more for what they're doing, which is building really complex ships with parts that need to be shot off that should be seen at slightly lower speeds. Precision targeting, though, is another interesting part of the combat. It sort of weighs more into like the multi-crew aspect of the game, but it also is kind of, when I saw it, I thought it was a little bit weird. Like, one of the interesting graphical parts of it is like the sparks coming off that they've started to, I think, use to emphasize more of the armor damage and stuff. What did you think of that whole system when you saw it?
Which one?
Precision targeting.
The precision targeting. Oh,
Yeah.
right. Sorry. You're saying something, and I was just like, what did he say?
Yeah, no, I got into
My brain
the
didn't
graphics
process.
of it.
Yeah. Um, I think I'm not a fan. I'm just gonna say it.
Okay.
I don't think a lot of people are, with that conspiracy theory that it's like, oh, that's what they do in Starfield, and suddenly they're doing it in Star Citizen. CIG's copying Bethesda, and I'm like,
Okay, that's
that would be that was the weirdest. That was like that is the strangest downgrade I've ever heard of. CIG is not one to do that. All A and B, they didn't know that Starfield did that until like August, and they started developing the system like well before that.
we also have known that we needed to target components for a long time. It was just more a
Yeah,
matter of how was it going to work.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
guess people are like, okay, they didn't know how to do it until Starfield did it, and then they figured it out.
yeah.
That's a
I don't.
conspiracy. I see. Zooming in
I
is not done often.
No, no, not at all. We
But
never use the zoom. I can't zoom my camera at all.
but why do you like
I
it,
don't.
or why do you
I,
not like it?
I I don't like when the ship takes away your control, because that's what the game is taking away where I'm looking and saying, zoom in on this point, that's where you're trying to target. And yeah, I know I'm trying to target it, but I also still want to be able to see around me. I want to be able to see what's happening. So if I'm targeting a subsystem of a large ship, and suddenly out of my left hand view, I'm seeing, oh, there's a fighter coming in right now. I need to disengage and roll away, or like get away from their strafing attack. I can't, because I'm just like, now I'm like on this one component part. I
Why
don't
not
mind the
just
targeting. I don't like the zoom in aspect of it,
why not just not use the zoom?
because it doesn't sound like they're like, so you can turn it off.
Oh, really? I thought it
Maybe
was
they
something that
will.
you specifically have to activate to use.
I hope so, but from what I heard, it's just one of those things that just it happens. I think they were going to test it as like an optional feature, but from the way that they were talking about it, is like it's the feature that they're going to add to Squadron. Like it's going to be in Squadron, and I don't
Huh.
like that idea.
Man,
I could be wrong.
I really do hope that that's just something that gets you can use it, but you don't have to use it when you're
Yeah.
targeting. That'd be weird. Let's see. All right. I think we've gone through plenty of genres and in quite a few of these features. We also covered this in Citizen Central, folks. So check that out if you want to know all of the details. Um, but let me ask you a couple last questions for us to finish up here. Um, what will the game be missing after the stuff that we've seen from 323 that would bring it up to a standard that you would say is ready to suggest to other people?
Um, Full like crash recovery, full persistence, bounty hunting, which still isn't in. Um, Another system, better reputation, like being able to earn reputation, and I would definitely say the new quantum system, the new
Yeah.
quantum
Wait.
travel.
Yeah, quantum travel. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's I think I saw recently in a Spectrum answer. Oh man, it might have been Yogi who said that they were not going to include the new quantum travel system until something else was done.
Yeah.
I think maybe they said until Master Modes was in live or something like that, which made me realize that the quantum travel system's a ways off.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's like the push pull EVA system. They're like, oh yeah, we're gonna do these things, and then eventually we'll do the push pull system, which allows them to like take a weightless object and you can push it and it'll move on its own.
Yeah.
It's like, that's probably a year away. If they're saying it's like it's next after these other things which aren't in game yet. And my thought is, see you in 2025. And that's the same thing with like that and the quantum like economy system.
Hmm.
I don't think you need the quantum economy system for it to be recommended, but it definitely needs to be in there if it's going to be a feature complete game.
Yeah.
And that's another massive shakeup to the economy and how things are going to work that people aren't used to or aren't going to be ready for. So, uh, but we have no idea when it's coming out. That could come out in
Yeah.
6 months. It could come out in 6 years. We don't know. So,
And neither of us have watched the Star Citizen Live. I know they talked a little bit more
no.
about the economy there. And there is a lot of stuff they can do to make the game better from the economy perspective without the full quantum simulation, which is nice. And it sounds like they're full steam ahead on that kind of stuff too.
Mhm.
Um, when it comes to feature deliveries, and we kind of started out the podcast with this January being slow, people expecting CIG to not really be making much of a difference after CitizenCon. A lot of people are still like, okay, so maybe they've got a good patch up their sleeve here because they took so long, but is it actually going to continue? Are things actually different? What are the kind of things that people should be looking for over the next couple months as we approach 323 that tell people these features are actually different? CIG is actually putting quality stuff into the game. They've got some momentum, and this is a better year as opposed to maybe this is just one good update.
Iteration. If we see them drop a bunch of stuff in, and then we like after they drop the bunch of stuff in, they immediately go, oh, and by the way, all of those systems we wanted to put in for EVA, the like the resource system and all that kind of stuff, that's next patch. Like they need to come out firing right after the release of 3. I don't think you're going to ever convince anybody that this isn't just but a one-off CIG just happened to have all this stuff done, and so they're just lucking out until they do it again. If CIG had a full 6 months to a year of hitting every milestone they wanted to, and actually, started to like add significant changes and improvements to the game that people could feel, I think that would change people's minds. But until that happens, I think a lot of people are just going to still kind of be wary about it, myself included, when it comes to a lot of the CIG's own claims.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we can't know it is actually a different year. I think there are signs pointing to it being a very different idea, and the level of polish we see in these features could be pretty indicative too, I think.
Yes.
But yeah, we won't know for a little while. I think that I don't think we're going to get another boring update.
No.
Ever. I think at this point we have passed the stage where updates have features that aren't just super impactful or making a significant difference. And even if it's just 2 or 3 features in an update, I think they're going to be pretty good. So yeah, I'm feeling.
I do agree. We're on that track where once they drop Pyro, I think the gloves are off. The only thing that's slowing them down at that point is their own speed, and their own speed will matter. So yeah.
Has a dam broken, Paul?
No.
Good call.
The dam is still there. Is it weaker? Yes. Are we going to see a lot of spillovers? Yes. But the dam ain't going to break until 4.0, 4.2, two patches after 4.0 drops.
Yeah. They get some time to straighten things out. Agreed. Mm-hmm. All right, man. Thanks for joining me for this good talk, dude. Can you let the folks know where they can find your stuff?
Well, if you enjoy stuff like this and gameplay, you can follow me at youtube.com/TheAstroPub live and twitch.tv/TheAstroPub. And if you like lore and narrative discussions about Star Citizen and other science fiction space games, check out youtube.com/TheAstroHistorian. So good stuff coming up there too.
AKA Lore Stradamus. Yeah. The AstroPub's been around for a while covering Star Citizen, and honestly has, I think, the longest running community podcast at this point.
Not the longest running, but the oldest still running.
Okay.
Because
definitely check them out. And if you are actually somebody who's like looking to also get into the community, do some streaming and stuff, sign up as a guest. Come on there and chat. It's a lot like this. We talk a lot of development, and it's usually a pretty fun show. So thank you for doing that, and thanks for whenever you have me on, and thank you for joining me for this show.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you, dude. And all of our supporters, thank you for joining us live. They make this possible. Our podcast is supported by our supporters, and it's ad-free because of that. So if you don't like ads on YouTube, go check it out on audio platforms. But besides that, they also get to come here and show with us live and listen to us talk before and after when we say what we had for breakfast and how delicious it was. It's good. They're good details. Anyways, folks, thank you for coming to this episode of the Launch Sequence Podcast. I will be with you next week for another discussion surrounding the crazy kind of news coming out as we get started again with another year, hopefully a good year. Thanks again for joining me. I'll see you all next week.